Good afternoon, good evening. This is a late one tonight. It's the only way we could get together. I have a very special guest on tonight. My name is Ed Franklin. I'm with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. You can always contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com if you'd like to be on my podcast or that you know somebody that would want to be on my podcast. And I have an extremely special guest on tonight that I kind of met on accident through Facebook. And Carlos Diaz is with me tonight, and he's going to tell us a little bit. This is going to be a really interesting podcast, so everybody sit tight and let's see where this thing goes. So, Carlos, thanks for being on my podcast, first of all. I've read a little bit about your background, and I'm intrigued to how this conversation is going to go, but I think it's going to be fun, it's going to be informative, and I think it's going to be inspiring. So tell my audience a little bit about your life, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. We need more people like you. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to do what you're doing, but it takes a lot of courage to do this. So thank you very much for having me on there, and congratulations on the success you're having. And I'm just honored to be here.
I appreciate that. We need a lot more people like you too, by the way. So tell us a little bit about your background. I'm just really fascinated about what you've been through.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with, I was born actually in Central America. My parents came to this country for for an opportunity, for the American dream. This is the land of opportunity, and they came here for a better life. They wanted to give us a better life. They actually escaped, all the violence that was going on in their country, and they brought us over here. I was about 11 months old when we came here, and had humble beginnings. Didn't live in the best neighborhood. Grew up with my parents up until I was about 10 years old, I would say. My parents got divorced. My dad was very abusive towards me, my mom, and my sister. And so we had a rough upbringing with my dad, but nevertheless, my mom parted ways. She did what she felt was best for us and herself, and divorced my dad. But unfortunately, when you don't have a father figure, you look for that sometimes in the wrong places, right? So I started looking in the wrong places, and I ended up hanging out with people I shouldn't have. I joined a gang at an early age. Went to juvenile hall, and eventually at the age of 15, I attended a party with my friends, and a big fight broke out. We didn't know what was going on, but we just knew it was a big fight that broke out. We all left the party, and 2 months later, they take us all in for a pretty severe crime. I guess somebody got severely hurt, and I ended up doing 12 years for something I didn't even know about. So I got sentenced to 12 years from the age of 15 all the way till close to 27. I was finally released, but it didn't end there for me. You would think like my family, I get to go home, but no, I had to face other consequences for that, and that was deportation. So I ended up getting deported to another country. I'm black and white. By all means, they don't want people like that in this country.
Right.
And I don't argue that, right? I'm not arguing that.
Sure.
Black and white. It's a privilege, and I actually believe that it's a privilege to be in this country. And they don't see that it wasn't me that committed the crime, but nevertheless, I got convicted. They sent me away. They sent me to a country where, again, I had known nothing about. I had family members killed and tortured there. So, matter of fact, when I was there for the short period of time, I had police officers target me, threaten to kill me if I didn't pay them ransom. And I was like, you know what, I got to get out of here. So
Is that an unusual situation, or did you meet other people or know other people that happened to? Because really, I mean, when you came over here as a baby, right, 11 months old, you didn't get citizenship?
Well, we were in the process of that. But
okay.
Yeah, like all my family is U.S. citizens. They're all U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
And by the way, just for everybody knows, I'm here legally now. So,
I just wonder, and I'm not, and why I asked that is because, listen, everybody in America is an immigrant, right? We all came over at some point. Most people. Obviously, I was born here, but at some point, my family were immigrants that came over here. And I don't know how it works because I didn't have that situation, but I don't want to get off on a political tangent, but
Yeah.
I think it's important for my audience to know that this stuff is real. It's not just, it's just not on TV. This stuff actually happens to people. And anyway.
Yeah, and just to answer both questions, so we came here legally when I was a young kid. We came here
Right.
legally, and it's just a process. It's not like you become a citizen overnight, right? It's just a long, lengthy process.
Okay.
And we were going through that process, but because of my conviction being so severe, and then just to add to that, I was a juvenile, but I got tried as an adult.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not like it would happen to juvenile. So that made it even worse. If it had been a juvenile record, I would have been a citizen right now, and nothing.
Okay, interesting. I really don't know anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So we were going through that process, but because I hadn't become a citizen yet, they were able to strip anything that I had and send me away. But yeah.
So how freaked out were you when you had to go back to a place that you were from, but you really didn't know anything, right? You moved over here when you were 11 months old. That must have been frightening. I mean, at some level, right?
It was, especially because, I had an uncle that had got deported, and gang members killed him because he didn't want to join their gang, or they didn't want to be part of their gang anymore.
Right.
I had an aunt that was actually brutally tortured. I'm talking about, they cut her breast off while she was alive.
Oh, good Lord, that's terrible.
Yeah, just for money. Just because they found out that she inherited some money. So I was definitely frightened. But I'll tell you one thing. I was always very optimistic. Like, I spoke both languages. And I'm always the type to think, drop me off anywhere and I'll make something happen. That's just my attitude. And that's how I went into this. Was I scared? Absolutely, I was scared. But I always try to look at the positive side. And up until you get held up by cops and they're threatening to kill you if you don't give them money. That's when I said, you know what, I can't do this. I can't live my life that way.
Sure.
So I came back. I came back to this country, and the only way I could have, I snuck back in, and this is the only place I knew. I lived here since I was 11 months up until that point. All my family was here, so I came back, and was trying to do. I was doing good, I was working jobs, whatever jobs I could get. Eventually, I helped my family start a family business. We did very well with that. We started as a janitorial company, ended up doing carpet and tile cleaning and water damage restoration. So I was doing very, very well for myself. And eventually they found out that I came back. So they took me back in. So now I'm facing time for coming back illegally. Again, our plan was always to raise enough money to hire a lawyer, because we knew it wasn't going to be cheap.
Sure.
To vacate and attack my original conviction, because I didn't do it, right? 7 of us went down for it. Only one person could have done it, and all of us didn't do it. So we were in that process looking for lawyers. Lawyers wouldn't take my case. So ended up having to do time for coming back illegally, facing deportation again. And I expressed to them my fear of going back. So I was going through this immigration process for quite some time. So I first had to face federal time again for coming back, which I was very blessed to have a very humble judge that took my case and took it for what it was and read everything that we presented. And he knew who I was and not what black and white said, right? So he was able to, have leniency on me, and, just gave me time served. He said, go and fight your immigration case. You don't deserve to do any more time. So we were very blessed with that.
Good for him.
Yeah. So I was fighting my immigration case. And believe it or not, I took it all the way to the Supreme Court. I took my immigration all the way to the Supreme Court. And, in the beginning, I tried to do it myself. I couldn't. Then I hired a lawyer. At the end, I had to go back to doing it myself, because at the Supreme Court level, those lawyers ain't cheap, and they don't give you too much hope. But I ended up losing it. I lost it. And when I lost it, I remember I had to go check in with ICE, which is an immigration division. And I told my wife, come with me because they're going to take me in. So I already knew that. But, my thought was, I'll go to Mexico if I have to. you know, you could go visit me. It'll be across the border. I'll work there, do whatever I have to do, and just, you know, still provide for my family. And we try to do that. And you know, my wife taught me one valuable lesson was unwavering faith. You know, she always said, I remember to this day, when they took me in, they gave us a 15-minute visit through glass. And my wife said, I don't care if they put you in that plane, they will bring you back. God didn't bring us this far for them to take you away from our family.
Well, that's amazing to be able to have that faith. And, you know, I talk about this sometimes on my podcast, and I share posts on Facebook about, you know, really believing that things are going to work out. It's you have to manifest those thoughts in your life, right? And you've been through the ringer, obviously. I mean, it's an incredible story. Did you write a book about this? Did I see that on your?
No, they keep asking me to, and I mean, that's on the plans. That's in the plans. We're gonna
Okay, good.
But yeah, well, definitely, we will be writing a book.
I mean, I can tell. One of my things I say on my podcast a lot, and it sounds kind of corny, is that my kind of at this age in my life, I've had jobs, I've had career, I've had all this, I've raised children. I really feel like I'm called to go to the youth of our world, right, and just put my arms around them and say, look, everything's going to be okay. You just got to stay focused. You got to stay on course, and you know, and just kind of put my arms around people and say, look, you're gonna be all right if you just keep that faith and you stay focused on what you want to do, and fall in love with something you're doing in your life. Because listen, I've worked jobs that I didn't like, and it's hard to go to work every day when you don't like your job. But when you start doing something you're passionate about, it doesn't become work. It's not work anymore, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I have that same passion. I actually went back quite a few times to do an AHA and talk to the youth there, because I think it's a very pinnacle point in their life where they're at the very point of two directions. Whether you get your life straight and you do very well for yourself, or you're just going to go down the gutter.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe it because I went through it, right? I wish I had people like you that would pour into us, you know, like you said, you know, just give them a hug and let them know it's going to be all right. Just stay focused.
And that's one of my goals, is to go talk to younger people, you know. And, you know, it's funny because I have my grandson just started as a freshman in high school here and in San Diego. And they're always pushing kids towards college, right? Not every kid needs to go to college. Some kids, you know, will be good tradesmen, and they can make a good living being a tradesman, or they could be, there's so many things out there to do for young people, but they're not encouraged to do it. And they don't have people like us, I'll just include you in that can say to them, look, there's some other options out there in life. This bad road, the problem with the bad road is there's some pleasure at first, right? There's some pleasures that you can see in it, but the joy, that long-term happiness, that's not a road for them, you know. And I'm involved in 2 organizations that do supplemental education for kids that aren't college bound, that need to learn some human skills, right? You learned human skills the hard way, right? You had to navigate through a system that was maybe it was flawed, maybe it wasn't, but you were stuck right in the middle of that system. And then when you had to serve time, that's a whole nother, I mean, we won't get into that. That's got to be a whole nother environment that I can't even imagine.
And trust me, I have no problem talking about that. But to your point, you know, I same like you. I don't want to say I'm not for college. You know, this is what I tell kids: chase your dreams, go after your dreams.
Yes.
If having to go to college and get a degree has to be part of it to fulfill your dream, so
sure.
Be it. But whatever your dream is, go after it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want my doctor learning how to be a doctor at 7-Eleven, right?
Right. Exactly.
But you know, it's not everybody's built to be a doctor, right? I've been in sales for a long time. I was in sales and marketing, and to me, that was just communicating, learning how to communicate with people. I grew up in a very diverse, racially diverse area, but I had no idea I was growing up in a racial diverse area, right? I just had friends. We played sports, we rode bikes, we did whatever. It didn't matter what color that person was. We were kids, right? didn't matter. And then I moved to an area that was not very racially diverse, and I was kind of shocked, by the way, because I'm like, where'd everybody go? Where's all my buddies, right? So, well, interesting. So I know that you were speaking to some children, some kids recently, right? What, young adults?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I was able to go talk at a leadership conference for college students this past week. So last week, actually. So I was honored to be able to do that and share my
Yeah,
story and talk to them about leadership. And it was great. I had an amazing time doing it, and made some great connections, um, and just was able to give back. So that's what I
yeah,
like.
good for you. So my podcast, No Limits, it started out kind of with the limitations thing, right? How do you get over these limitations in life? And it could be as simple as I tell a story about my wife and I going to a trainer and trying to get physically healthy, and just we could overcome some things. But what's happened with this, it's just kind of morphing into this podcast. The No Limits is just that we can talk about anything we want, right? So so you haven't written a book. We got to work on you on that. We got to getting you started to put that pen to paper, because I think it would be important for kids, or maybe you do a podcast, or we get John here again and stuff and talk about a specific thing. Did you grow up when you came from Guadalajara, right? Or Guatemala? Were you in California the whole time?
Yeah. So I actually grew up. We started off in Dana Point, San Clemente area.
Okay.
Then moved our way to towards the Anaheim, Placentia, Fullerton area. So that's where I grew up most of my life. But before I get into that, I'm going to go ahead and tell you one thing that happened when my wife told me that. I was telling you about when we were through that glass mirror. In my head, I was thinking, man, my poor baby can't accept it. I took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and she just can't accept it. But little did I know, she taught, like I was mentioning, she taught me a valuable lesson, and that's unwavering. Sure. And they took me in, and they gave me another opportunity to fight my immigration case. So I was able to fight it again. Didn't have success there in the immigration, but I was able to come and get bailed out. And finally, I was able to hire an attorney that would take on my original case when I was 15 years old. She didn't give me much hope, but she was at least willing to take it. And I remember telling her, look, I just need you to do your part. Just do your part, and God will take care of the rest. And she took it, and we were successful in beating that case. They took that case.
Did you meet your wife in California?
Yes, I met her in California.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were successful in winning that case. They vacated it, which was the core problem of immigration. Now I'll be able to have my citizenship in the near future, but that was a core problem. And then I'll tell you one thing before we'll get to that, is that I still had one more case to take care of, which was for coming back illegally. And I had no more money to spend on lawyers. I had spent money on 2 or 3 immigration lawyers.
Right.
I spent money on that lawyer. We had to spend money on getting bailed out. Like, we were tapped out. I was choking in debt. I was drowning. And but I knew I had a small window of time to attack that case. So guess what I did? I did something very, very crazy. I did it myself. And I was successful in taking that case off my
wow.
So I always give glory to God. I'm a big believer. I'm a follower of Christ, and if I believe, I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in God. We have a lot of prayer warriors behind us. But that being said, faith without works is dead. So you can't just pray for something and not behind it. So
I speak about this all the time. So I'm part of the Catholic Church, and I'm part of the Knights of Columbus, and I talk to this all the time about that exact thing. I said, God's given us these talents, right? He's given me the ability to talk to people, to be able to see positive things in people. And just to sit there and not use it is really a waste, right? You're right. We do need to, but action is king, right? We need to get out there. we need to do something. We can't just sit there and talk about it all the time. And, you know, too many people just sit around and talk about it.
Yep.
So the interesting part, well, there's 100 interesting parts here. We could be on here for hours, but is that the system really kind of worked for you in a way, right? I mean, it's not a horrible system. It kind of worked in a way that you were able to at least get the opportunities instead of just cutting you off and saying you're done, right? You had to fight for it. You had to do those works.
Yeah. I'll tell you that the justice system is definitely broken.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
It's definitely broken, but I would never have had this opportunity in no other country. That's why I love this country, you know. In this country,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
I love it. You know, it's not always going to be a walk in the park. You know, look, yeah. I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year. That happened when I was 15 years old.
Sure,
I was wrongfully.
That's a long time.
You know, I ended up doing 11 years for that in prison, from 15 to 26, almost 27. So, you know, it sucks, but
yeah. I didn't mean the justice system. The justice system works in that crime situation. I mean, it worked in being able to get your citizenship, and you had avenues that you could do. Yes. That piece of it, that piece of it is definitely. But I think they're just so overwhelmed. I'm not protecting the justice system, by the way, because I totally understand that we just want to wash our hands of things and put them away, right? This is a human nature thing. We just want to put it behind us. It's not my problem to just let somebody serve the time or whatever. But I agree in that situation that it's broken. But I want to ask you a question. So your mother, right? Do you mind talking about your mom a little bit? Mm-hmm. Moms are the greatest thing in the world. So my dad had a shitty childhood, and it manifested itself as when he was an adult. And he was not a greatest husband to my mom. He did keep food on our table most of the time, but my mom was the one that I was just talking about leadership and how much of a great leader she was, but I didn't really know it when I was growing up. She's just my mom, right? Yeah. But she held things together. Your mom must have been amazing, right? Oh, she had to hold some stuff together for you.
Absolutely, man. You know, I'll just be upfront. I'm a mama's boy, so
that's right.
You know, I love her death.
We're all mama's boys, man.
Yeah. So, you know, she was definitely amazing. She was able to, you know, she did what she could, you know, with the cards that she was dealt. You know, she loved us unconditionally. You know, she wrote letters to me at least twice a week. I would get a visit from her at least once a month. So, you know, I couldn't have had a better mom.
She helped you with your faith, right? I mean, she was encouraging you with those letters. As long as you were getting that letter, you still knew that there was light at that end of that tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds to me like your wife's very similar to your mom in that way.
Yeah, no, she is. Man, my wife has, you know, it's one thing to experience that from a mom, you know, like we said, there's no love like a mother's love, right? But then to have that from a wife is just an added bonus, you know. My wife has, the reason I'm here, I like to say is because of her, you know, once I moved out, you know, once I was living with my mom for a little bit, but then I moved out, went on my own with my wife. And then, you know, my wife was the one that encouraged me. She was the one praying over me. She was the one that instilled a lot of godly things in me and taught me a lot about faith, you know. Her story alone, let me tell you something. If you think my story is powerful, and I always tell my wife, you need to share your story, but her story is what moved me and motivated me to do better.
Right.
She's been through, like, you know, I'm not even going to go into that right now, but and you know what, I'll talk a little bit about it. You know, she the curious thing is she's from Guatemala too. Okay. So she came here when she was very young, and she actually came here when she was 10 years old. Her mom was here way before her, and then she was living with her mom and her stepdad, and she just went through some horrible things that no woman, let alone a little girl, should go through.
Right.
So bad that she ended up in foster homes because of that. The cops took her out of that home, and she was in foster care for all the way until she was 18 years old. All the way until she was 18 years old, and then after that, she had four beautiful daughters that I consider my own now. And then the father of her kids passed away when she was pregnant with the youngest.
Oh, wow.
Now she has no more family here, nobody to help her. She has to raise four daughters on her own with no family help.
Wow.
And she's just been through so much. And I was like, wow. I was thinking, when I heard her stories, like, man, I have nothing to complain about. So sometimes you need to hear these stories just to help
Sure.
you, inspire you, and motivate you. And knowing what she had been through is like, wow. There's no way I'm going back, and there's no way I'm not gonna give her a better life. So,
well, that's awesome. And I have a very supportive wife too. Some of this crazy shit I come up with, like this podcast and things like that, she's always back there saying, you know what, I know you can do it. And to have your wife back you up on things like that it's amazing. It's more important than friends. It's more important than anything to have your wife, not push you, but just support you, right? You need that support sometimes. Because listen, I guarantee you go through days when you wake up and you're like, not again. I don't want to do this again today, right? But those kind of people, your mom, your wife, my wife, some of my friends, they push you and they encourage you, and that if you just change your attitude a little bit that day, it's going to be a better day. So that's awesome. But I tell you, I wanted to touch on your mom and your wife because I think it's hugely important. And when we have all this divorce and all these problems, and especially in America, because we're all fucking spoiled, it's important to understand that those are so much more meaningful than money and things and all that stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely.
To have that encouragement, yeah.
Oh, absolutely that. And I'll tell you, this last time I was in there for 7 months fighting my immigration status, and I was being detained. I had made, before that, I had made some pretty good money with one of the family businesses that we were able to build. And it's good. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with making good money,
No, not at all.
Money gives you options, for sure.
Sure.
But the one thing that I missed, and the one thing that held me here to fight even more, was definitely, my family, my wife, my mom, my grandchildren, my daughters. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna go down with the fight. We're gonna go out swinging.
Well, and you start seeing that your children, your grandchildren are looking at you, going, "You're the leader, right? You're their rock. You got to be that one." When they're looking at you, when they have any issues in life, no matter if they're minor issues, major issues, they're going to be looking at you to set that example of what to do next. And to have, listen, dude, you have some courage. I don't even know if I even have it inside of me. I mean, I've had a blessed life, really. If you look, it's funny. I was listening to somebody the other day, and I thought to myself, I have zero limitations in my life, right? I have so much, and where I'm sitting in this house right now, and I have all this equipment here and everything, and I've worked for it. But compared to people like you, or these other people that are struggling in life, I have it so easy. But I want to offer up, I've learned a lot, right? I'm almost 60 years old, and I've learned a lot about just life, right? Dealing with people, and when you're a salesman, you're a psychologist too. I don't care what anybody says. You should get a degree in psychology, but I see so much positivity in people. When I meet them, I find something in every person I meet. I find something I love in that person. I might not like them, but I find something I love in that person. And I like to draw that out. You can see the light in someone's eyes when you start drawing out their positivity and encouraging them. And they're like, wow, I really could be something, right? When you start seeing that in people and you're able to draw it out. I kid with people because I have this. I was at a conference last week when I was in Palm Springs, And I met this gentleman, and he ended up telling me a lot about some struggles he was going through with his kids. And I always joke that people want to tell me things like that. And I don't, and I joke just to make fun of it, but it's one of the, because I saw how positive, he has a really positive opportunity here, and he needs to look at the positive opportunity he has and not dwell on the bad shit, right? And I see that in you. I see this light in you. And I don't know how I saw it on Facebook, but once I started reading your story and kind of looking at your posts, I know you're genuine. I know you're not just blowing smoke up, you know.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, and I feel this more about you, but I'll tell you that unfortunately, a lot of people do like, you know, I think it's partly human nature. We dwell on the negative a lot. We
100%.
tend to look at the negative, right? But it's a mindset. It's a shift that you have to do to start looking at the positive. Like, believe it or not, the first time I learned that was in jail when I was doing the prison time. I remember, you know, I was, I don't know, about 5-6 years into my my stint, and I had some friends there. Actually, one of them was the ones that went in there with me. That we were in the same place.
Right.
Happened to be, and we used to go and walk the yard after we did exercise. And he had a friend that he met in there that became very close friend to him, and he always had a smile, always happy, right? And I was always very serious. You know, I wasn't happy to be in jail. Like, I didn't even do this, and why the heck did they have me in here? You know, I got and I remember very, very, very vividly. And I actually wrote a post about that. We went back into our cell, and what's it called? My friend, the one I grew up with,
Yeah.
told me that his friend told him, like, man, why is your buddy always with a serious face? He has like he's always mad at the world. And I was like, bro, like, we're in here for something we didn't do. You expect me to be happy? Like,
Right.
in prison, like, what the heck, you know? And I don't, and I never forget my buddy, the one I grew up with, told me, you know that this so and so guy, he's doing life for something he didn't do. I was like, wow. And
Wow.
always had a smile, always greeted you and made you feel good every time he seen you. And that's one lesson that's where it began for me. Like,
Yeah.
It's all perspective, how you look at things. You know, he taught me a very valuable lesson, and I was like, wow. And I never forget that.
Sounds like it. Yeah. And those are those, and that's, I've always told my kids, and this is a great lesson to tell your kids too, is I can tell you where you're going to be in 2 years if you tell me who you're hanging around with and what you're reading, right? Are you reading positive things? Are you, you know, I have friends that are just spoiled Americans, right? I'll just call them that. And I don't care if they like that or not, that constantly watch the news, right? If you ever want to be depressed, just watch the news for an hour a day and it'll depress you. Because, you know, I'm a little older than you, and it didn't used to be like that in the media. It's all negative now. Everything's negative. Everybody's fighting. Everybody's arguing constantly. And I took over a sales organization once, and one of the things I told the group is, I said, look, the first thing, I don't argue. I have an ex-wife. I argued with her for all these years. I don't argue with you because there's no benefit for us to argue about negative things. Right? Let's be those people of possibility. Let's figure out ways to get things done, get them done positively. And, you know, you going out and speaking to these kids, I mean, that's something that I want to do more of. And yes, I have had some, you know, parts of my life that weren't perfect, nothing like you, but I still can encourage those kids that, look, there's a way around or over or through that wall that's in front of you, that limitation. There's a way to get over it. Yeah. And you know, here you're in prison and you're meeting this person that, you know, is encouraging, that really has no future, right? But in his mind, he's got you know, he can change that whole thing with the right perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, to your point, I can't agree anymore. You know, when I have my to-go topics whenever they want me to talk to, whether it's, you know, entrepreneurs or young kids, my top two things to talk about, one is belief. Yeah. Believe in yourself, and really that's what it takes. And then the second one is you will be the average of the 5 people you hang out with. What you're
Yes.
talking about. Whether it's the 5 people, whether it's, financially, relationship wise, faith wise, it doesn't matter. The top 5 people that you hang out with the most, you will fall average. And it was true to my point as well when I was a kid. In our lifestyle in the gangs, there's
Yeah.
only there's 5, what's it called? Positions that you'll fall in. You'll either be dead, right? Well, you end up dead. That's the worst one. The second one is a wheelchair, right? You end up in a wheelchair from violence, gang violence, where there's stab wounds, gunshots.
Yeah.
The third is doing life or a very long time in prison, right? The other one is in and out of prison and drug addict. And the last one is you have an okay job, but you still go to the neighborhood every weekend.
Yeah.
Till you're 40, 50 years old. That's all you're gonna do. And guess where I fell? Right in the middle. Life, long time in prison. And it's true in everything else now.
Sure.
In my life. So I'm a big believer in that. So
well, here's my
books,
great thing.
like you were talking about, I have books and even over here as well. I'm a strong believer in reading, educating yourself, and just finish never is. You want to continue to learn and learn and learn.
I'm going to make a note here that I want to get back on that books. My mom, I hung out with some kids that were, not perfect kids, whatever. They're a little rough. And my mom used to say, look, Ed, you can be a positive influence too, right? You don't have to be negatively influenced. You can be a positive influence. And I had these 2 brothers that used to come to our house, and they were pain in the ass to their parents. Their parents, I think they would have kicked them out at 10 years old. But when they were at my house, they were always respectful to my parents because my parents treated them with respect. So they didn't take anything from our house. They were yes, sir, yes, ma'am. They would eat at our house. They had manners. They had all. And it was interesting that when you saw these kids outside of my house, they were assholes. But at my house, they were respectful. First of all, my dad was kind of badass. So I think he would have hit someone else's kid too. I mean, he wouldn't even have cared if it was his kid or not. And the parents probably would have went, yeah, well, he probably deserved it. So books, interesting. I had this guy that used to come to me, and he'd always tell every week, man, hey, Ed, you got to read this book. You got to read this book. You got to read this book. And I said, did you ever stop reading books? I was saying this to this guy. Did you ever stop reading books and take some action on the things that you learned? Back to that works, there's got to be works, not just prayer. And he didn't. He would read the books and get a lot of knowledge, but he wouldn't apply anything, to that he learned. And I kind of stopped reading for a while just to go back to some of those books I read that were my favorite books and try to apply some of those things I learned. Because we can do that. We can put so much information in our head that we're not really acting on what we learned.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that knowledge is power, and it's not. It's applied knowledge that's power.
That's right. Exactly.
So it doesn't matter to your point, it doesn't matter how many books you read. If you're not putting into practice what you're reading, it means nothing. Well,
and same thing when you're going out and speaking to these kids. I used to do these like motivational. People go, oh my God, Ed, when you speak, you're so motivational. I said, yeah, but when you walk out this door and stub your toe, did you forget everything I just said? Do you just go right back to those bad habits or those things you were doing, or do you just apply one thing? I used to say, the big question in life is what if? What if I had money? What if I had a better job? What if I was a citizen of the United States? What if? If you keep asking yourself that enough, your mind will figure out a way to get that. And I think it has to be a positive thing. And I think it needs to be, I think you need to focus on it, right? What could you do? Like, I remember Tony Robbins used to talk about, I can make you rich in 90 days or whatever he used to say. But something he used to say that resonated with me is if you had a ton of money, if you had $1 billion, you know how many people you could help out. If that was your nature, if your nature was to help people out and you worked hard and you earned a lot of money, you know how many people you could help out. And sometimes to have that cause in your heart will kind of lead you. And I think you have that. I think you've decided at some level, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put thoughts in your head, that if you could give back if you could tell your story and have 1 or 10 or 20 kids go, well, shit, I ain't doing that. Carlos taught me not to do that. I think that's the value in life, right?
Oh, absolutely. When I go in there, and I always, I always pray before I go in there, and I ask God to give me the right words, and
Yeah.
into the hearts to those that want to receive it, right? But I always say, even if I could just change one life, changing that one life is going to affect generations to come. So yeah, to your point, absolutely. I love that. I love that.
And you said something to me. You said something to me, I think on the phone we talked before about you find that family in a gang, right? You get that love, at least, where guys they got your back, right? 99% of the time they have your back. They're gonna do whatever they can to make sure you're protected, whether it's for the wrong reason. I mean, I understand the structure of a gang. I mean, I get it. These kids didn't come from perfect households. Probably none of them did. If 90% of them did not come from perfect households, and they're looking for that love, right? They're looking to have someone put their arms around them, and it happens to be a person. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's what color you are, or whatever. They're looking for that family love, right? And that's the worst part, I think, about it, is because in order to earn money and things like that, they have to do stuff that's illegal or whatever it is, but it's still all about foundation and family.
Actually, absolutely. Actually, I on the last leadership conference that I did, I touched on that, because I believe that if you could have one skill to build an organization, I believe that top skill is creating a culture.
100%.
And to your point, like gangs, like, look, it'll work in a positive way, or it'll work in a negative way.
Sure.
You create a culture and a movement, you're unstoppable.
Well, and a gang even has, I don't want to talk positively about gangs, but they have a structure, right? I mean, there's.
Yeah, and trust me, it's not, and I'm not putting it in a positive way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that's what holds people down, holds them
Sure.
in, right? In a great environment, a work environment, and a business that where you have a great culture, your business is going to flourish.
Well, and I talk about that a lot with companies, and I've been hired at companies to change that culture. Where I find that the culture breaks down, and this would not happen in a gang, is that the upper owners, upper management, they don't want to change what they're doing. They just want the culture to change below them.
Oh yeah.
And that can't happen. The top guy, girl, has to be, he has to be the one driving the culture, right? They have to be the example, like a father, like a priest, whatever you want to call it, like a head of a gang. They have to have that culture in their heart, and then they have to, develop it at a lower level. Yeah. What happens with a lot of companies, especially with people my age that were managers in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we had this culture of just do your job and I'll let you keep it, and you can't treat people like that. You won't get that loyalty out of them, and you won't get the longevity. I said to a guy today that people don't quit their job, they quit their bosses, right?
Absolutely. And nowadays, you're right. It's not like the days like before, and in different levels, right? In different, we could talk about this in different levels, but when it comes to it, everything nowadays falls or rises on leadership.
Well, so here's a funny thing. So if you listen to my last podcast, it was about leadership. So I've studied that. I've read books. I listened to different speakers talk about it. And a couple of things I kind of challenged people with. The first thing I said is, do we need leaders? Do you even identify who a leader is in an organization? Sometimes, and I brought my mom up. I said, here, my mom is a really good leader, but she wasn't that person that walked into a room and everybody knew she was there. She was 5'2". She just led by example. And now looking back, I'm like, shit, she was a great leader. But it's like being great. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to be great, and I'm going to go tell everybody. Those are the people you can't trust, right? Yeah. I'm going to be great, and I'm going to show you how great I am. It's those those kind of quiet leaders that lead us through life.
Yeah.
That we don't even identify as leaders until later, until we look back and go, wow, that's interesting. So the ones that are out there trying to be leaders, trying to learn these skills, I'm not sure those skills are learnable. I mean, I think at some level they are, but I think just people kind of have that built in them. I think you're a leader by the example you're setting. You're not going out and telling these kids, I'm a leader, right? You just go and tell them the truth. That's an interesting thing to do these days, right? Tell the truth.
Yeah.
And then you lead by example.
Oh, thank you for that. And I agree with you 100%. You know, some people are just gifted or naturally have that. And not everybody as a leader has that title or position, right?
Yeah.
And just because you have that title and position doesn't make you a leader as well.
100%.
So, I agree with you. No, yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, and then in the workplace now, you know, I know you touched on this a little bit as well, but you know, everybody wants instant gratification. You know, it's
yes,
it's not like that.
That's kind of a millennial. That's kind of a. So when I always kid with people, I'll say, well, you know, I know a lot of young people that are superstars, right? I have a couple of kids that are just, all my kids are superstars in their own way. You know, I look at you, you're probably considered a millennial almost. My daughter's almost your age. And we give them a bad rap. We give your generation a bad rap. We're saying that my dad used to just call people dumbasses, right? But that guy doesn't get out and go to work, he's just a dumbass. We could have called them millennials too, by the way. And we just made up this name. And I run into a lot of young people that are on fire, that are doing good things, that have great futures, they're out there changing the world. And I just think that we do this. This is a generation, an older generation. We just look back and think that everybody that's younger than us is lazy. That's not the case. But the instant gratification thing, that's kind of an Amazon, right? I used to have to go to the store and buy shit or wait for it to come in because it wasn't in stock. Now, when I don't get something the next day, I'm pissed off, right? So I have the same problem.
I forgot who I heard somebody bring this up, and it was so true. Like, next time you sit in the microwave, tell me you don't get impatient.
Oh, 100%. I did it today.
You're like, man, a minute? It's taking too long. You take about 45 seconds. You know, you don't even wait the minute.
When you stick your finger in your food, you're like,
you have to wait hours for your food to be ready, right? So yeah, we're definitely spoiled, and we're definitely living different times.
Well, I'm old enough to know I didn't have a microwave until I was like 13 or 14 years old. So we had to cook stuff on the stove.
But you know what I'll tell you is that we need that toughness back.
A little bit.
I think we're weakening our generations.
We need to be less. We need to be a little bit. So it's funny. My landlord here, we sold our house and we moved, and this kid is younger than me. I think 15 years younger than me. And he was working on a car one day, and he said to me, because I wanted these cars out of my driveway, and he said, hey, I got to go get a tool. I said, well, I have the tools. He says, I thought you said you didn't work on cars. I said, I don't work on cars anymore, but I know how. I have the tools. I just don't like working on cars. I also know how to do electricity. I know how to frame. I know how to do all these things. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
We grew up having to do that. I had to work on cars because I couldn't afford a mechanic. I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
My mom used to say, you know, Ed is one of these people that I can figure out anything. My son's 10 times better than me at that.
Wow.
Because we, out of necessity, we had to learn shit, right?
Yes.
And we had to fight. When we were growing up, someone picked on you, you fought them, right? That's just what you did. Now, no one had a weapon back then. We just got some bumps and scrapes and bruises. But you learned respect. You learned how the hierarchy worked in life. And now, you know, now they get on a video game and blow each other's head off. So I don't.
Yeah.
But you're right. We do need to toughen up a little bit. You're right.
I think it's just, you know, it's frowned upon. Not by me. I think, you know, I'm still a little old school. You know, I'm tough when I need to be tough.
Sure.
You know, but I'm very loving and spoil my my kids and my grandkids. But when it's time to be tough, I'm tough.
Well, you have to. If they grow up with no discipline, you're going to have more problems on your hands than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Look,
right?
This is a nasty world that we live in, and we don't prepare for that. And I believe that's why this new generation, or I don't even know what the generation is called now, but it's very soft, and they feel very entitled, and it's not good.
I know. I mean, I have so my youngest is 25 years old, but I have a 14-year-old I'm raising here, and I definitely he definitely has an attitude that is different than how he's getting raised, right? I remember one time, I think he said, "You can't hit me," or I didn't hit him, but he says, "You can't hit me," and I said, "Oh yeah, I can hit you." By the way, in fact, I could drag you through the hallways because you're 100 pounds and I'm not. But he gets it that we have that. But I can tell you that a lot of the parents I'm watching raise kids his age, they don't have that. The fear's not there, right? I had a reverence for my dad. You revered him. You did not. He wouldn't hit me probably, but he might have, and I didn't want to get that. Right?
Yeah.
As long as I had that fear, it's the same with God, right? I'm not scared God's going to punish me, but I revere what God says, right? And go down there.
Yeah.
Well, man, Carlos, I think you and I need to do a couple things. I think we need to stay close here because I think we have something to add for those, young people out there. I think you have more of a conduit to them because I'm a little bit older, but I still have some information for them that I've acquired over the years. I think we need to come up with a topic for our next podcast instead of being so kind of general, because I think we could make some headway and I could explain more of these things that I'm involved with that you could be a huge help to and you could benefit somehow from that. But I'm really happy that I met you. I'm real happy that you came on our podcast. I think people are going to find this very interesting. I think you're the American dream, right? I think you are doing there's an opportunity in America to succeed. And I think you're taking advantage of that, and you should take advantage of it. That's what America was built on. It was built on the things that you're doing right now. And just as from a religious point of view, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to, right? We know that God picked probably the 12 worst, Jesus picked probably the 12 worst people he could find as apostles. And too many times people don't understand that those apostles changed their life, right? And then they changed other people's life. And that's what you're doing. You're like one of the apostles were you a perfect kid? No. Did you get involved in shit? Yes, whatever. But instead of continuing down that bad path, you've decided to turn it around and show people that you can change and you can be a positive influence in life.
Well, thank you very much. I just feel honored to be on this show, and we'll definitely be able to do another topic for sure. And you're doing the same thing, and I applaud you for that. You're out there making a difference as well. And you're right. God doesn't choose the well, how can I say it? Like, he doesn't choose the one you think the person that you would think the ideal person to fight battles, right?
Right.
He chooses people that people would have never thought. And I'm just honored and I'm just humbled to be able to, be chosen to do it. And I'm just honestly humbled to be able to be here in this country. This is, I might have been born in another country, but I was made in America. So yeah. I love this country and I don't take it for granted.
Well, and I tell people all the time, I say, America's not perfect, but it's perfect enough. And it's better. It's the best. Listen, no one's fighting to get into Haiti right now, right? No one's getting on a boat and going to Haiti or Guadalajara or anywhere, Guatemala. No one's fighting to get out of here to go somewhere else. They're trying to come here because, yes, do we have flawed system in some? 100%. We have some flawed systems, but it's people like you that can help change those flawed systems.
And I think that's why we have to really hold tight to our freedoms that we have, because we're like the last hope for the world if you think about it.
Yeah.
But I was
every generation is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at some posts, and Australia is looking for America for guidance. They're telling us, don't let go of your freedoms. Hold on to them.
Well, I can tell you this: it's a 100, it's a 400. Excuse me, it's 1 in 400 trillion that you were even born. That's statistical fact, right? You're here for some reason, and you're doing that reason, right? I'm here for some reason. We have to look to that and say there's some purpose we serve in life, and we have to do that. I think too many people don't see that purpose in themselves. Listen, every generation should be better, right? Every generation, we should be teaching our youth, teaching our kids to be better people than we were. And every time we can do that for one kid, it's multiplied, right? So we have to continue that. It's kind of like compound interest with money, right? As long as we're raising the right kids, then they're going to compound, and we're going to put those kids out in the world to do right. So, yeah, you're doing awesome. I think we have some synergy here that we can continue this relationship into some other things, and we'll definitely get together again, whether it's in person or a podcast, and maybe you and I go on, it's the Carlos and Ed tour, and we go out and just talk to kids and say, man, we're begging you to please understand that the positivity in the world and the value you hold to the world. And when they can see that value in themselves, they'll start creating more value in other people too.
Absolutely. Sometimes it takes somebody else to point it out, because we all have blind spots, right?
100%.
So
that's the sin of a person, right? Is they don't see the value they see it in other people sometimes, but they don't see it in themselves. And you got to start with the foundation, right? It's the old, you're in an airplane and the oxygen mask comes down. You can't help your child if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, right? You got to take care of yourself first, and you can help other people around you.
Yeah.
So sit tight, stay on here. Let me do this ending commercial thing, and then I will we'll talk for a minute. So this is the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. Carlos Diaz was a great guest, and I knew he would be as soon as I talked to him on the phone the other day. If you want to contact me, it's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. Please share my podcast. Make sure you share this podcast, because I think you're going to hear a lot about Carlos in the future. He's a good man. He's overcome a limitation that seemed probably impossible at the time, but he overcame it anyway. And he's inspiring, and he's all those good things. So Ed Franklin No Limits podcast, please share, and we'll have another episode I'm doing tomorrow, but this one's going to be out first. So talk to you later.